Alright gang, let's take on our toughest challenge yet in Tinkercad. We're going to make a Flexi Person. And this is a Flexi Person because there are hinge joints at all the joints that a person would normally have joints, like the elbow and the shoulder and the hip and the knee, even up here in the neck for the head. So you can see a finished copy of our Flexi Person on the work plane right now. And there's two pieces I need to point out to you here. One is this cylinder box combo. We're going to use that over and over again for hands and feet and body and all that. So we're going to make that one first. And then the biggest challenge, we're going to make this hinge joint like you see here, this blue one. Let me see if I can get in there a little closer for you. Oh, dude, fuck. Alright gang, let's take on our toughest challenge yet in Tinkercad. We're going to make a Flexi Person. And I call this thing a Flexi Person because it's flexible. It has hinge points, hinge joints in all of the spots you would expect a person to have joints. The elbow, the shoulder, the hip, the knee. You've got something up here in the neck. It's really cool when this thing's 3D printed because you can pose it, position it however you want. It's a really cool project. Kind of challenging too. We'll start off with a simple shape though that we'll use over and over again. We're going to make a cylinder and a box combo like you see up here. But then the challenging one is we're going to make a hinge joint. Call this one a hinge joint because it's a joint that can move around. And see if I can show you kind of the inside of it a little bit. You can see there is this outer kind of collar, but then if you look close here, if I can get you there, there's a couple of spheres. There is a negative sphere, a hole in the bigger box, and then there is a solid sphere inside of it. So it functions almost like a ball joint, in your shoulder or in your hip. So this is going to be the challenging one to do. But what we'll do is we will make the hinge joint. We're going to make this shape, the cylinder box shape that we'll use over and over again. We're going to kind of make a master copy of this. And then we'll just kind of copy those over and over again and move them around until we get a cool Flexi Person like that. So hang on tight. Remember, you can always hit pause if I'm going too fast for you. And send me emails if you got any questions. All right, so I think to get started here, I'm going to clear our work plane. I'm going to select the finished copy here of the Flexi Person and just move this Flexi Person off to the side. And now I will make the cylinder box combo that we'll use over and over again by dragging a cylinder in. And everything we're going to do today on this Flexi Person, it's a 10 millimeter height. So we can always take the height and change it to 10. Everything's the same. 10 millimeter height. And then notice that there are a bunch of kind of rough lines on the outline of this cylinder. That's because right now it's technically a 20-sided polygon. There's 20 sides to the cylinder. If I take this side slider and zip it all the way over, we'll get to 64. And now it's a 64-sided polygon, which is almost enough to make it perfectly smooth. That'll make it look a little cooler. All right, I'm going to take a box and bring that in. And again, I'm going to set everything in here. All my heights are going to be 10 millimeters. So I'll click on the gray handlebar. That controls my Z axis. Click in the number field and type 10. So I got a 10 millimeter box. I just want to line them up. So I will select them both and say align. And I wanted to align them on the Y axis here. It already looks like they're in perfect alignment. That's why these little handlebars are grayed out. So that is cool. Now I will select my box. I'm going to hold down Shift and bring it to the left here. By holding down Shift, it makes it so that I can only move it on that Y axis. And I can't move it up and down. And what I want to do is get it so that it is halfway, it's at the halfway point of my cylinder. Maybe it's a little bit further than halfway. All right, perfect. All right. So that is my one piece I'm going to use over and over again to make my body. You can see the arms and legs and parts of the Flexi Person over here. That's where we're headed. But right now I'm just going to drag that off to the side. We'll do the more challenging part here. Let's make this hinge joint. So that hinge joint starts with a simple box. So I will click on the box and bring it in. Remember, everything we're doing here, the height is going to be 10. The Z-axis will be 10. So I'll click on that handlebar and type in 10. All right, and then my X and my Y axis on this one, I want it to be a 15 by 15 base. So I will click on the little gray handlebar down at the bottom, and I will do 15, hit Tab, and do 15. So I have a 15 by 15 by 10 millimeter cube. Right. a good start. All right, next step, I'm going to cut a little slot in there. To do that, I will grab a box, and this time I'm going to grab the box that is already set up to be a hole, to be a cutter. And for this one, the height doesn't really matter, so I'll just leave that at its normal 20 millimeter height. But when I click on the lower handlebar there, it allows me to change the X and the Y. I'm going to change this one to 4. And actually, that's perfect just the way it is, because now I'm just going to slide this box into the middle and use it as a cutter. To get it right where I want it, I think it is best if I work from the top view. So up here on the view cube, I'll click top, and I'm staring at it straight from the top, and you can tell that I am not quite in the middle of my cube, so I will select both of those shapes and hit the align key. I'll align it in the middle. This time I don't want to align it in the middle on this axis. I'm going to bring it all the way over to the left-hand side, just like that. So now if I orbit, you can see where my cut is going to go. If I cut it right now, it would actually cut this cube in half. I don't want to do quite that much, so I'm going to select my cube that is the hole. That's going to be my cutter. I'm going to use my arrow. I'm going to hit the right arrow one time, and I'm going to hit it actually twice. Each time you hit it, it moves it 1 millimeter. So I have now moved this thing 2 millimeters back, and that looks just right. That's going to be a perfect little slot. So I will select both of them, and I will join them, or group them, I'm sorry. And there you go. Got my cube and my cool little slot. All right, now comes the part where I got to put a sphere inside there. I'm going to use a whole sphere, and it's going to make kind of the opening where the ball will be able to sit. So I am going to grab a sphere, and I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to make this one a 9 millimeter diameter sphere. So I'm going to click on the gray handlebar there that allows me to do the X and Y axis. I'm going to hit 9, hit tab to jump over to the other one, hit 9. I'm going to click on the gray handlebar that does the Z axis, and I'm going to make that one 9. So I have a 9 millimeter diameter sphere. All right now it's a solid object. I'm going to change that to be a hole. Now I just need to get this in position so it's right in the center of this cube, and then when I group them, I'll carve out a little hole in my cube. So I have both of these objects selected, or I'm drag a box over it. I have both of them selected. I'll hit the align key. And I want to align these on the Z-axis for sure. Right? That's going to put it right in the middle of my cube. I want to align it on that Y-axis, so it'll be perfect on the side. And then again, I'm going to not align it on the X in the middle. I'm going to actually crank it all the way over to the end. I'm going to click on that align object on the left-hand side there. So you can see it's in there, but it's a little too deep. It's kind of buried in there. You can actually see it poking out the end. So now what I want to do is select just my sphere. So I'll click off and then come back in. Make sure I click just on my sphere. And then again, I'm going to use my arrow keys. I'm going to hit the right arrow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, 4. Oh, sorry. I'm going to come back one time. So I want to have it 3 millimeters in. So I'm going to hit it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And now that hole is 3 millimeters in. And you can see how it's kind of nestled right in that cube. So now when I join them, select them both, and group them. Group them. So when I group them, that hole has been cut, and I have a little negative sphere right in there. Perfect. All right. Now we'll put a regular sphere in there, and that's going to rotate around like a ball joint. So I'll click on a sphere, and I'm going to bring it in. The hole that I cut was a 9 millimeter diameter sphere. This one I want to be a little bit smaller, so it's going to be a 7 millimeter diameter. So I'm going to change all of my axes to 7 millimeters. So I click on the little gray handlebar, click on 1, 7, I hit tab, 7, and then I'll go to my Z axis and change that to 7 as well. So now I have a 7 millimeter sphere. All right, I just need to get that into position so that it's it's ready to be a little ball joint for me. So I will select both my sphere, and my object and my box. Hit align. I will align them on that axis. I will definitely align them on the z-axis. And then again, I'm going to slam it all the way over to the left-hand side of this shape. And then I'll be able to use my arrow keys to get it into position. So I'll click on my solid sphere. So you got to remember that it is 2 millimeters smaller in diameter than my hole. So if I hit my arrow key one time, second time, and a third time, and a fourth time, that's going to move it over the original 3 that the hole was, but then it's going to move it one more. That would be the radius that I need to match, if that makes sense. But just visually, you can see it's in the middle of that. Right? So now when this is printed, they should be able to kind of rotate. And the way this prints, it leaves a booger or two, support material. I always call them boogers. A little bit of material in there, but when you start moving them around, it kind of crunches and breaks free, and then you have a movable joint. All right, we are almost done with this hinge joint. We did the hardest part. Now we just need to get the rest of it that's going to kind of stick out here that we can use for making our body parts. To do that, I will use the shape I said we were going to use a bunch. I am going to select both the cylinder and the box. I'm going to do Control D to duplicate, and I'm going to bring one over. All right, and this is going to rotate up 90 degrees and kind of slot in and connect to that sphere. So I'm going to rotate it. Can't find the axis I want to rotate from this view, so I'm just going to kind of pivot around until I see that one right there. So the little curved arrow, it's going to allow me to rotate this shape. I'll click on that, and I'll type in 90 degrees. All right, so you can see it's almost ready to slot in there, but it's a little too big right now. I'm going to click on the gray handlebar there. I'm going to make this thing, I think my slot before it was 5 millimeters wide. This one needs to be a little smaller, so I will go for 4 millimeters. And then the height on this guy, remember the height on everything is going to be 10. So the z-axis is always going to be 10 millimeters. And then I think the width on this one, just trust me on it, let's go for a 15. All right. That looks perfect. It looks ready to slot right in there. But if you notice, it's kind of poking down through the work plane. It's actually in the negative territory. You need to bring that up to the top of the work plane. So I'm going to select both those shapes. The letter D, great shortcut. It moves it right up to the work plane. All right. And then I am going to align them. So I will grab all these objects, select all these objects, hit the align command. And it's really important that I have it aligned on this axis, so it's going to kind of slot right in on the center. So I'll hit that little black arrow or black dot. Now it aligns perfectly. So now I can just select both of these objects. I'm going to hold down Shift and just move it right into place. And remember, holding down Shift keeps it so that you can't move it back and forth on a weird axis. And I want to get it so it kind of matches up with that ball, that sphere. Which it looks pretty darn close. I think that's going to be great. Yeah, so you see how there's a little gap in there? Actually, it seems like it's maybe too tight, actually. So let me select both the box. I'm going to hold down Shift and select that cylinder. And instead of 4, let me go for a 3.5. Oops. I didn't have that cylinder selected. Alright, so that's looking good. They got out of alignment, so I'm going to just realign them real quick. I'm going to click on one, hold down Shift, click on the other, hit Align, and line them up. Alright. That is looking pretty good. I'm excited about that one. Okay. One last thing, I need to join these together. So I got to do my best to zoom in there. And I'm going to try to click on that blue. I'm going to click on the blue. That's going to give me the sphere. I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to click on the orange there of my cylinder, and I'm continuing to hold shift. I'll click on the big box, and I will say group. And so now you can see they're grouped up, and if you look close, you can see that ball is right inside of the socket. It's going to work out perfect. And just so this looks cool, I'm going to select them both and then change the colors so that it's all a blue object. But it's important to understand that these are not grouped yet. Both the outer box and the inner part there, they are still separate. All right, the hard stuff is done. We have our hinge. And now we just need to start copying both our hinge and then this other little simple shape that we'll be using over and over again to make our body. Hey, let's start from the bottom up, though. So over here in my spare parts bin, this object here, you can see this is the leg. So we got a foot, we got a shin, we got an ankle, we got a thigh. Let's make that. I'm going to start by selecting my cylinder and box combo and doing Command D for duplicate. I'm just going to kind of drag it down here and start making this foot. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees so it's kind of straight up on my work plane. And then I'm also going to shrink it up a little bit. It looks a little wide. Let me click over here real quick and see which numbers I used. So I made my box 26 by 15. So I'll take my box and make that 26 by 15. Remember, everything's already at 10 in terms of the z-axis, the height, and then this cylinder here is going to be 15 by 15. And then I want to rotate this to make it kind of a foot. I can't see the curvy arrow that I want to from this angle, so let me orbit a little bit, and there it shows up. I'll click on that one and type in 90 degrees. So it's going to kind of flip up. Now I'll take it and just artistically place it where I want by grabbing those black handlebars and just moving it around. All right. And that doesn't look quite right on that axis. What happened there? I think that got a little fat. I'm going to change that to 10. That's right. That looks good to me. Foot, I have a shin. Let's make a knee. I'm going to take that hinge joint that we made. I'm going to select it. I'll do Control D for duplicate, and I'm going to bring it down right on top of my shin there. Now I need to rotate it, so I'll make sure I have it selected. Grab that little rotate twisty arrow there. I'm going to move it around until it is facing straight down there, so a 90-degree rotation. All right, let me select them all and align them using the Align command. I want to align them on that x-axis. Then I'm going to do this one by hand. I'm going to bring it down until it's kind of into the knee. So I make sure I have my whole hinge joint selected, or into the shin, I'm sorry. And I'm going to drag it down. I want to leave one little space, 1 little millimeter gap there. If I zoom in, you can see there's one little space on the work plane. And then it's kind of embedded into the shin. And that's going to be an awesome little knee right there. So, all right, that's looking good. Next step, I need to make a thigh. I can make that thigh by simply selecting the box that is below my shin box there. I'll do Control D for duplicate, and I'm going to bring it straight up. Bring it up until it's kind of just 1 millimeter in to that knee joint there. So when I group them all together, they'll be bonded. There won't be a little gap between there. Now this would be kind of a big thigh if I left it that way. So let me look at my model here. This is the spare parts that I did from the last one, and see that's 15 millimeters high. So I'm going to select that and make that thigh 15 millimeters high. Make it a little bit smaller. All right, so I have a foot, I have a shin, I have a knee, I have a thigh. Now we need to do a hip. So I'm going to do that hip by selecting my knee joint there. So I have all parts of the knee joint selected. I'll do Control D for duplicate, and I'll just hit the up arrow there and bring it up a little bit. Zoom in and make sure I have that 1 millimeter gap. Yep, I have a 1 millimeter gap. So it looks like I have a nice set of legs there. I'm sorry, not a set. I have one leg. Let me duplicate it and I'll have a set of legs. So I'll select the whole thing. Control D for duplicate. I'm just going to bump it to the side. And again, I'm going to look to have that 1 millimeter gap in between there. Actually, I think I can do a 2 millimeter. I'll do a 2 millimeter gap in between the two legs. All right. Lower body is done. All right, let's do a torso. I just need a box for the torso, so I can grab any of these boxes and duplicate them. I'll grab this thigh right there and do Control D. And so now I have two of them, and I'll bring it straight up and give myself, actually I don't want a gap there, I want it to be in that that joint, right at the top, so I'm looking at it straight from the top. So I'm in that that hip joint there, and now I will bring it straight over to the side until it matches. Didn't quite get there. Zoom in. Having a hard time with this one here. Nope, somehow I got a little off there. Let's do 32.5. I think my gap got a little bit off. And it is okay if this is not perfectly there. I just like it to look really nice. Okay, there we go. 32. All right, so that is the start of my body, but it's a little short, obviously, so let me pull it up. And bring it to about there. Not really paying attention to the numbers here, just making it look good. I did get that little overhang back there. I think the width with my legs, it's 32. So let me, instead of 32.5, let me do straight 32. All right, it's going to have a little overhang. That will be okay. All right, so now I got my body, no problem. Let's get some shoulders in here. So I'll duplicate the hinge joint. So I'll grab the hinge joint, Command D, and I will bring this guy over there. Now the problem is if I just were to jam this into the body there and group them all, I would lose the hinge joint. It would all become this solid thing. So I need to do a little box cutout. So I'm going to grab a box that is the hole. I'm going to bring that in on my work plane here. Now I'm going to change the sizes. The one I'm really concerned about is the width going up and down there on the z-axis. I'm sorry, the y-axis. The hinge joint we did at 15. This one I want to do at 14, just a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to take it. I'm going to put it in kind of where I want that shoulder joint to go. Actually, you know what? This will make it easier if I do this thing 14 by 15. So it is the same width on the x-axis. It's just a little bit skinnier on the other side. I'm going to put it in just like that. If I orbit, you'll see that I didn't worry about the Z height on it. This box is still pretty darn big, pretty darn tall. But it's going to cut all the way through my body and give me a little socket to put my hinge joint in. Before I actually do the cut, though, let me duplicate it and then do the same thing on the other side. So Control D, and then I'm just going to bring it straight over like that. So I'll have my two shoulder holes kind of opened up. So I'll hold down Shift. I'll select the two cubes that are going to be my cutters, going to be my holes. I'm going to select the body, and I'm going to group them together. And that gives me a nice little hole where I can now slide. So I select the whole thing, slide my hinge joint right in there. Cool. And now I will duplicate that by doing Control D. And then I'm going to mirror it. I'll flip it over by hitting the mirror command. And I'll mirror it on that x-axis. And then I'll bring it straight over. All right, cool. Zoom in there, make sure it's all looking good. It's okay that there's a little bit off right there, but I do want these shoulders to be aligned up. So let me make sure that those are aligned. Just get the shoulder part, so I'll select the one hinge joint, hold down Shift, select the other one, hit Align. Oh, and it looks like they are lined up. Okay, we're good. Cool. All right, and then I'll just group them together right now by holding down Shift and selecting the main parts, the body part, and the outer parts of the joints, and saying group. And now they're all grouped together, and I got a blue body. And I'm not worried about that little line there. I'm pretty darn sure that's going to line up just right. Okay, looks good. I got a body, I got some shoulders, I got that lower body. Let's start working on the arms. All right, to do the arms, I'm going to grab this cylinder and box combo, do Control D, and bring it down. All right, and what did I use for the sizes on this arm over here? 16 by 15 is going to be the box. So I'll do 16 by 15. And then that cylinder is going to be 15, right? So 15 by 15. And get these guys aligned. And I'll kind of center them up a little bit. Actually, I think on my box I screwed them up and they're in the wrong side, the wrong direction. So I'll do 16 by 15 the other way. And then I'll line them up. All right, so there is a hand. I'm going to take that hinge and use that. That's going to be my elbow. So I'll select the hinge, do Control D for duplicate, and bring that down here. It's like I need to rotate it around. And I will align them all. Bring that back a little bit. And I want to leave that 1 millimeter gap in between there. All right, so I have my hand, I got my elbow. Let me rotate it here just a little bit so we got a little more room to work. Bring it down. All right, let's do this upper arm right there. And it looks like I used a 23 by 15 box. So I'll grab any of these boxes I have over here and do Control D, duplicate. And say that was going to be 23 by 15. I'll bring it down on top. And again, I want this to not have a gap here, but actually be inside just a little bit. Just like that. Okay. Almost there, except if you notice on the finished copy, we got a little bit of an angle there. Makes the hinge joint line up a little bit nicer, just makes it look a little bit cooler. So let's do that one. We're going to do that with a box that is a hole. So I'll bring that in, make it a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to rotate this one 45 degrees. And that'll give me my nice little angle. Let me undo. I missed it the first time. There we go. And I'm just going to line it up till I'm kind of catching that corner right there. And when I join these two objects, both my box that is a hole, I'm going to hold down Shift and click on that upper arm. When I join them, I get a cool little cut. All right, now I just need to get it into position. It's actually might be a little easier if I group the whole thing now. Okay. I can put it into position. I can rotate it, and it should match up at 45 degrees. And then just kind of get it to where it looks good. Again, keeping that that 1 millimeter gap in between there. Okay. Looks good. All right, let's put the other arm on there. So I'll select my first arm, hit Control D for duplicate, hit the mirror command, and mirror it on that axis. And then bring it over. And you could line it up that way. I think actually when it's 3D printed, it works better if it's up, so I will flip it on that axis and then line it up. Gives them just a little more kind of cool poses to be in. All right, we got legs, we got body, we got arms. Let's slap a head on this guy. I'm going to need a cylinder, so I'll click on that cylinder I have, do Control D, and bring that over. It's kind of a small head, so let me stretch it out just a little bit. Bring it out to 30. That looks a little big. Bring it down to, I like 27. All right, so I have my head there now, and now I need to put the hinge in there so he'll be able to flop his head around. So I will select the hinge and do Control D and bring that one over. I'm going to rotate it so it's in the right direction, grabbing the little twisty arrow there, curved arrow. And I'm going to kind of bring it in and get it so that it's sitting just so it's poking out a little bit. Let me orbit here, see how things are looking. Somehow my cylinder got a little tall. I think it was when I was holding shift, so let me just fix that. It's supposed to be 10, right? Everything is going to be 10 millimeters. And so now I have my hinge in there just right. However, if I were to group this, it would turn my hinge joint into a big solid mass. So let me do a little bit of work on this head here still. I'm going to make a little cutout for my hinge by grabbing a box. And I don't care what the height is, but I do want the width to be 15 by 15. Remember, that's what our hinge size is, 15 by 15. I'm going to bring that in and kind of drop it right on top of where my hinge is. And so now I can use this as a cutter. So I will hold down Shift and select my head. So I have my box and my head selected. And when I group them, it has now made a little cutout for me there. But there's still a little bit of stuff kind of sticking out here. So let me see if I can make a cutter that's going to kind of trim off the edges of that hinge joint. A good way to do that is taking this cylinder. I'm going to do Control D for duplicate. I'm going to bring it up here. And you know what? I should have done this before I cut the cylinder out. So let me just grab another quick cylinder here. And I'm just going to redo it. And that was 27, right? So 27 millimeters by 27 millimeters. And then the height on this one, I can actually kind of crank it up a little bit. And I'll delete this other one. And this one is actually going to be a hole. So I'll select the hole. And then just stick with me for a second here. This will be a cool trick. I'm going to grab a box. Just a straight up box. And I can make it relatively large. Not that large. And you can kind of see what's happening here. I have a hole and I have a box on top of it. Let me combine these guys. Group them. And so now I have a big box with a 27 millimeter diameter hole in there. So when I line these guys up, I'll be able to use it as kind of a cutter. Right? So let me change this red solid into a hole. And then I just need to get these things aligned. I think I can select them all and align them on that axis. And that's going to get me there. I think that's actually good. So now I want to make sure I select just the right ones. I'm going to select the hole. I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to select the outer part of my hinge. And when I combine those, oh, look at that. Got a nice little good trim. All right, then when I select all these guys and group them up, they're all, one solid piece. I'm not worried about that little line. I think it is going to be solid enough to work. All right, and then I'm going to bring this one down and put it into place. And oh my goodness, I think we have a person. Let me select the whole thing. Group them up. All right, that little red line means my computer's thinking right now. And there it is. Got a sweet little person. I'm not worried about those extra little lines. I think they would print out no problem at all. All right, hey, I know that was a challenge. Let me know if you have any questions. Send me an email. I'll see if I can help you out.